to it only being one project on the agenda, this is a collaborative development activities meeting between the Hill District Consensus Group, the Hill Community Development Corporation, the Hill District Collaborative, and Uptown Partners. We do have 2 additional special presentations. So we do have Shinley Heights Collaborative on as well. Welcome, Mrs. Lavelle. What is a registered community organization? They are community organizations that can apply to obtain a formal status as a registered community organization or RCO with the city. They play a formal role in helping channel community input about development projects in their geographic area within the city. Becoming an RCO requires meeting certain criteria related to organizational standards, transparency, communications, and etc. There is a biennial application/renewal process with city planning. What is a development activities meeting? At a DAM, pardon the acronym, a developer presents their proposal and the community asks questions and gives comments. It is one part of the development process for projects that meet specified thresholds before they go to a public board and or commission hearing. This is an overview of the full process itself. There are at least 30 days prior to a board or commission hearing after the development activities meeting. And that allows the community to provide written and or verbal testimony, written testimony to that board or commission, and allows for DCP to provide a DAM staff report. So what requires a development activities meeting? So it is when a certain project meets a threshold and needs to go before the Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Adjustment, Public Art and Civic Design Commission, or the Historic Review Commission, and also meets one of these criteria. I will only name a few, and that it meets 2,400 square feet of new or expanded structure, a project development plan, or a PDP or planned development, like the Lower Hill, or a final land development plan, or a master development plan, which all apply to the Greater Hill District. So as for Planning Commission, which applies to this project, additional comments can be shared with your registered community organizations. Additionally, this project will present again before the Planning Commission. That date is to be determined. You can visit https://pittsburgh.gov/dcp/virtual-pc. To provide public comment, you can email testimony to planningcommission@pittsburghpa.gov. Email testimony must be received at least 1 business day before the meeting at 12 p.m. You can also send a letter to 412, pardon this incorrect address, 412 Boulevard of the Allies to the 2nd floor, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 15219. You can also join the virtual meeting and use the raise your hand function to request to speak. Or you can join in person at that same address. So again, our agenda for today is a demolition at 1634 and 1636 Fifth Avenue. Our project applicant is Amanda M. I will not mispronounce your last name. And we do have 2 special presentations for Crawford Roberts Neighborhood Architectural Survey, as well as the Shinley Farms Historic Guidelines. There are multiple RCOs applicable to reviewing tonight's projects. When there are two or more RCOs convening a dam, the RCO guidelines denote that the Department of City Planning hosts the dam meeting in coordination with said RCOs. Prior to the introduction and project presentations, we would like to offer each RCO a chance to speak about their work and about any engagement they had on the project. I apologize, the screen is white. Okay. I will first pass this over to the Hill District Collaborative, and their slides are not coming up. Britt, did you have issues with your slides?
Hi, Ose. I
Actually, this is a
actually,
consensus.
can you hear me,
Yeah, I can hear you.
Ose? Oh, sorry. I actually left the slides as is from the previous SAM. I'm not quite sure. I know that there was issue last month um with uploading here, but I can be very brief. These look like they belong to a consensus group, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, these are the consensus group slides. Just in interest of time, and again, you seem to be very familiar with everyone on the call. I'll be representing both the consensus group and the collaborative, so I'll be very brief and short. So we can just go through maybe slide number, what was that, 10? Or not. So the Hill District Consensus Group, hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Britt.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll just be very brief. We are the Hill District Consensus Group and the Hill District Collaborative are both registered community organizations. We are very engaged and active and committed to development, both economic and residential development happening in the Hill District. We have joined together to pretty much unite our processes so that any developer who is interested in development in the Hill would contact either RCO, and we would look to work together and coordinate a meeting about the project so that you're not going through separate processes. So we do share same processes, same matrices when reviewing the project, and we look to hold community meetings that reach the level of being reviewed by the community. So both organizations have taken the position that this particular project is in the Uptown region of the Hill District. And so each organization will confer and align with Uptown partners regarding this project.
So I do have that up on the screen here. And thank you, Britt, for
Thank you.
providing that information. And I will pass it over to Uptown Partners.
Hello.
Share.
Can everybody hear me good?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okie doke. So we're Uptown Partners of Pittsburgh. You can go to the next slide, please. Myself, Michaela Scheckler, who does our real estate and development projects as an AmeriCorps Vista, and then Dashni Johnson is a community project manager, and that's who makes up our team for Uptown Partners of Pittsburgh. Next slide, please. I'll just go through this quick. I won't go through the whole thing, but basically our mission is to work together to build a vibrant, sustainable, and just community for all. Next slide. Okay, so this slide basically represents what's been going on as far as project interaction with the developer regarding this demolition. To give a little bit of backstory and some history, the project, well, I'll say the property that I think is in the most most detrimental state is the one that's facing Watson Street. And I reached out to the owner of the property back in 2022. The owner did respond, but nothing actually happened. I was hoping for an emergency demo back then because at that point there were bricks falling. there was like the window pane basically falling out. Like it was a mess back then, but nothing was done about it. So apparently, back in 2023, I received an email from GBBN that I didn't get at the time. I guess it somehow slipped my my view. But anyway, after that, there's been no other outreach to actually, talk about this property, this assemblage, any plans for the 1600 block with us as the RCO for Uptown. Next step in this interaction was right before the last development activities meeting, we had a quick last minute presentation to our Red Committee. During this presentation, GBBN representatives presented the plan to demolish these structures with kind of a concept of a plan for redevelopment in that space. What I will say is there has been no actual developer interaction. So we have not spoken to the actual people who own this property with respect to this project or this plan. So I'm not really sure what's going on. I did receive an email today that there's been substantial updates to the plan since the last development activities meeting through tonight. So I am looking forward to seeing what they present. But it would be appreciated if the actual developer, the property owners did attend these meetings and did reach out to the RCOs. And I will say that I know it's beating a dead horse, but I stand by the Uptown Public Realm zoning protection, which is there should not be demolition on Fifth Avenue without a solid plan for redevelopment. Period. I understand that, OSA, you did reach out to me and explain that this met the criteria, that's fine. But the fact that all of the RCOs that are on this call did not see an actual plan for redevelopment of this space when it's basically trying to demolish a block is problematic for me. So I'm really looking forward to seeing these new plans this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McDonald. Pierce. Now we'll pass this over to Dylan with the Hill CDC.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So my name is Dylan Brown. I am the Policy and Planning Associate at the Hill CDC. I'm also joined by Diane Day, who is our Programs and Policy Director. You can go to the next slide, Osei. So the Hill CDC is a place-based organization that focuses on the revitalization of the historic Hill District, which includes Uptown. Our motto is where cultural legacy meets future innovation. We're happy to say we've been around for a little bit and we're celebrating 38 years of operation. Next slide. So this is our official mission statement. I won't read it just for the sake of time, but we try our best to connect people, place, and policy with planning initiatives to develop the Greater Hill District in an equitable fashion. Next slide, Osei. Seems like the formatting has changed, but that's okay. The important part is the information. So like I said, the three pillars of our work are people, place, and policy. On the next slide, we go into a little bit more detail about those three pillars. The first being place, which is our real estate development team that focuses on the commercial corridors in our neighborhood, as well as home ownership initiatives. The home ownership initiative tends to bleed a little bit into our people pillar, which focuses on, the business and entrepreneurship side of developing a community, as well as affordable home ownership and first-time home ownership. But another big pillar of the Hill CDC's work is around arts and culture. We love to center the cultural legacy of the Hill District as a historically Black neighborhood in everything that we do. And then there's the policy pillar, which is where I spend most of my time, which is related to promoting equitable development across the entire neighborhood and implementing neighborhood planning strategies throughout the Greater Hill District. I'm working closely with OSA and the Department of City Planning on our Greater Hill District Master Plan update. And that is just a fraction of the work we do in the Policy and Planning Department. We always say that's where the good trouble at the Hill CDC happens. So thank you. We'll go to the next slide. The DRP is the Hill District's unified community review process. It's a two-step process, with one being a panel of residents that are appointed by these organizations here, and the second being the entire community coming together to score a project. And that accumulation of review is our development review panel. So the DRP is designed to streamline community review in the Hill District. It was founded a little bit over a decade ago, and it was designed after consultation, negotiation with other community stakeholders and elected officials. Next slide. Yeah, so this is just a little bit of a repeat of the information I've mentioned. These are the 7 organizations that are based in the Hill District that have appointing powers to our Development Review Panel Committee. Next slide. So in the last 10 years, we're really proud to say that the DRP has reviewed over 60 projects. These span a wide variety of developments, whether it be residential developments, commercial, supportive services, cultural spaces as well. You can review any of these projects if you're interested at hilldistrict.org/DRP. Next slide. So real quick overview, it's a 2-step process. The first step is a presentation to the panel of residents that are the DRP committee members. They do a very deep dive analysis and review of a project and determine if it's aligned with the Greater Hill District Master Plan sufficiently. After a plan hits the 80% threshold or above of the DRP score, then it goes to our Greater Hill District community for a community resident score. And then we take both of those scores, combine them together, and the average of the two is our cumulative score for a project. Next slide. So as I said earlier, we have a high threshold for alignment with the master plan. We do this specifically because we don't want to waste anyone's time. We don't want to waste the developer's time. We don't want to waste the residents who come to our monthly DRP committee meetings, but as well as the wider community when we have our quarterly meetings. We want to make sure that a development is sufficiently aligned with our master plan before it goes before our residents for a vote. This is so that we can, address potential challenges or concerns that residents might have initially before they come to the community. And it's proven very successful across a wide variety of projects. And like I said, you can review all of those on our website. Next slide. So if a project scores less than an 80%, that doesn't mean that they're done and they can, claim community support. It's a threshold that we've established, as I've said, to establish a consensus. We don't want it to just be 50+1. We want to see a wide variety of support from the residents on this project. We always say the DRP is not a barrier to development. It's actually a bridge to equitable community development. And so if a project does not hit 80%, we meet with them to discuss the feedback. All of the DRP committee members, on their scorecard, there are different sections of the scorecard. So we go through with the developers to discuss which sections they perform poorly on, where there's room for improvement. We brainstorm ideas of how to address the concerns that the committee have identified. And they're always welcome to come back when they feel they're ready to present, and they'll get a new score from the DRP committee. That's pretty much everything on this slide, so we'll go to the next one. Now, as an RCO, we use the development review panel to determine if we are supportive of a project or not. So the only way to get a letter of support from the Hill CDC is to complete the DRP process. So a letter of non-support is only issued when a project is pursuing public approvals, and they haven't completed the process. That's the only time as an organization will not support a project. Next slide. I think that's the last one on the DRP. Correct. So with regards to this applicant, as of today's development activities meeting, this project hasn't been submitted to the DRP. We've been in touch with the developers. We've encouraged them to submit back well in advance of the last development activities meeting. And so as an RCO, we can't endorse this project today at the meeting, but we do encourage the project managers with GBBN to submit this project to the DRP. It's a very easy form to fill out, and Diana or I are very happy to meet with you over the next couple of weeks to get a submission finalized. But other than that, on the last slide, you'll see all of our social media for Hill CDC. You can follow us at My Hill District. We always encourage people to sign up for our weekend roundup. We have one more for 2024. This is a really great resource to learn about everything related to the Hill District, whether it's events, policy decisions being made or considered. And we encourage everyone to go to hilldistrict.org/sign up to join the list. Thank you so much, Osei.
Thank you, Dylan. And I do want to offer some time for Mrs. Lavelle to provide information about the Shenley Heights Collaborative. Thank you for joining us, Mrs. Lavelle.
No need, Osei.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So I will pass this over to Sabrina and Amanda, and you have the floor to share your screen.
Thank you. All right. Sabrina, you want to start us off?
So this project is going to be referred to as Fifth and Van Bram for now. It is very early in its preliminary stages, and so we do intend to provide more concrete development planning. But because of the nature of this meeting, due to it being in the Uptown neighborhood and within the Uptown public realm, demolitions, as you all know, have to go through the development activities meeting just as a typical development would have to. So with that in mind, we were led by planning to have this naturally and it to be focused on the demolition. We did go for an emergency demolition, but were denied for that despite the state of the buildings with the condemnation notice and the reports of the bricks falling from the front. It was gated in to try to provide some protection to people on the road, but the application for emergency demolition was denied. So we did continue going through the normal permitting process for that and are still waiting for approval, this obviously being a necessary step to go through that. Can you go to the next slide, the imagery I made?
Yeah. Sorry.
So the properties are the 1634. I don't know if do we have images of the properties in here?
I thought I did.
So the properties are 1634 and 1636. Those familiar with the neighborhood know that is Red's Bar, which sits at the corner. A residential-esque type structure in the back facing Watson, and then another one attached to it. This is on the 1600 block of Fifth Avenue. So these are the properties in question. So you'll see that horse type construction there to try to provide some protection, the caution guard, and now there's some fencing in that area. And then pictured at the leftmost is the bricks that are coming undone from the building. So we are aware, the developers are aware of the state of the building, but they can't just demolish it. So we have gone through the proper processes for getting it demolished from an emergency standpoint. Like I said, that was denied, and so now we're going through the typical demolition process. I did want to touch on community engagement so far and we'll start with the consensus and the collaborative group we met with on September 19th.
I don't want to, oh my bad, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to make sure, is this being recorded, Osa?
It is being recorded.
Oh, my bad. I didn't hear that announcement. I just wanted to double check. Thank you. Sorry, Sabrina. Go ahead.
No problem. The Hill Consensus and the Hill Collaborative Group we met with on 9/19. We provided them with this presentation as well. We also met with the consensus group again on October 22nd to discuss it again and talk more about opportunities for community engagement that was a bit more interactive throughout the entirety of the Hill District, understanding some of the historical concerns about development activities meetings and things like this not being interactive enough. We did reach out to Uptown partners and we had a meeting scheduled, understanding there was some turnover within. And so that is probably where the miscommunication came from with scheduling the original meeting. I did reach out to Dr. McDonald in July, but it was very shortly after that. And so again, we understand that that issue there, but we were able to, I was able to meet with one of the RED committee members and give him a little bit of an overview. And then we were able to get scheduled for November 12th RED meeting where we gave a full overview and were able to answer questions regarding the demo and give a little bit more on the development portion of it. We have not engaged with the Hill CDC's development review. We did not see because this is just about the demolition, that it would be robust enough to go through such a process as that, but we are more than ready to engage and give more information. It is very straightforward at this point. We are just looking for the demolition of these structures. But with regard to and we're happy to engage in any way about this, but with the development, we are making sure that we're going to go through everybody's individual development review process. So we're prepared for that. And then we also did meet with Councilman Lavelle on December 12th, and he was in full support of the demolition, understanding that there is a viable plan coming. It's just that in the development timeline, there are things that change. And then there have been significant updates since the last meeting was canceled due to technical difficulties. So I do plan to coordinate with all the groups, beginning with Uptown Partners where the project exists, but not excluding all of the other RCOs that are fully engaged in this RCO process.
Right. So just to mention, there is a development plan with the owners of this property. They are longtime property owners and will continue to be. And the desire has always been for this to go in the same process as the development. I know that's desired by all of the parties here, but given the state of the buildings, they wanted to push this forward. And so we are at the state of trying to take care of these buildings while also moving forward on a development plan that we are all very excited about. But the schedule of that really is starting construction in a year from now, November-ish. And so, that just was too long of a time for this building to go unattended to. And so that's one of the major reasons why we're here today talking about the demolition of these buildings. One of the comments that we've received in the meetings that we've had is just kind of understanding and recognizing the history of this space. Red's Bar has been there and here for a very long time, and our intention is to keep the sign that's going to be removed very soon before any demolition, and retained within the building. And the owners are very interested in showcasing and highlighting the history of this site. And then just to talk a little bit more about the proposed plan and why it has been, like I said, it's been moving in parallel, but at a much slower pace. And so this plan and a couple of these pages were shown to the RED committee, as well as the consensus group and collaborative. But we do have more information. We went through a design phase, really concept design to understand like how many units, how big this site is, what we can do with it. And then to get just some pricing. We didn't want to share too much without understanding that what we were showing was in alignment with the budget that the client has. What has happened since the last scheduled DAM meeting is that we have gotten pricing back and the project is moving forward, which we're really thrilled to share with you. So the project is the entire block, as Sabrina mentioned, mixed use residential, with 7 stories, 6 stories of residential above, a story of commercial, and parking. And I'll show you those plans here in just a minute. Because the site is so very, very long, We have designed to break that up intentionally to add a public plaza, as well as highlight some more opportunities for commercial use at that ground floor where, there will be the glass. And then we're also meeting the zoning requirements for setbacks as you move up the building. This project will require 2 performance points, which we understand, but otherwise we are designing this and intended to be require 0 zoning variances. So just designing as of right. And here are just a few of the views. I'm just going to skip through these because they're old and I've got some updates. But again, just that kind of end piece, as you're coming down Vine, it kind of dead ends into this portion of the block, and really finding a nice opportunity to see the site from there. As I mentioned, we are intending to have parking on this site. It will not be along Fifth Avenue. And we are going to be taking advantage of the sloping of the site. And so there will be access to parking up at the Marion Street as well as down at Van Brom. The owner is in conversations right now with the parking authority to see if there's any feasibility to make this public parking and not just private for residential use only. As I mentioned, we're intending to have commercial space and amenity space on the first floor. And then we have units that range from studio, 1 bedroom plus den, 2 bedroom. And then some of the units on the top floor will be enlarged to be considered penthouse, but not the entire top floor. What is the most exciting and why we've been really anticipating getting this pricing going before we start really talking about this project is that this has been designed to be a mass timber project. So, given that this is in the Eco Innovation District, it really is a really fantastic opportunity for a construction type like this in this area. So mass timber had been used, many decades ago, but hasn't really seen a modern resurgence. But it has such an amazing sustainability story because the reduced carbon footprint of it. And so this building has been priced and is feasible for it to move forward as a mass timber building. Now, of course, that's all interior, and so we're looking at how we can kind of express that palette at the exterior and break up that facade. We're really cognizant of the requirements of bringing some character to the facade so that you don't have a really stagnant facade, especially along a very long block like this. So utilizing a panel system that would break up that facade, as well as mullions that express a kind of individuality of these units as well. So these are some updated renderings. Again, that public plaza that will provide access to restaurants. We're imagining a restaurant or cafe that has seating within this plaza and really just be open to anyone in the public realm. We do intend to have, obviously there will be another dam. There will be planning commission separate for this as it pertains to the demolition of the 2 buildings. But again, we just wanted to give you some more insight into that this is real development. We do foresee this will be moving forward. There's been a lot of engagement and we're really excited about this opportunity for the Pittsburgh region this will be the first modern mass timber building in Pittsburgh.
So minus these new exterior shots and some of the stuff, all of the RCOs have received this as of a few months ago or within like early November. So all of them have that packet, everything that was submitted to the Uptown partners and reviewed with them very thoroughly. And also Hill Consensus Group was also received by the other two RCOs as well. So these are updates that have happened recently, but we certainly wanted to make sure it was final before coming through and just providing something to push forth the demolition. There is an actual redevelopment plan.
That is it for our presentation. Any questions?
I have a quick question. So in order to do this, I would imagine you have to demolish the Amplify building, correct? When is that supposed to happen?
So that will happen. They have a current lease. The original intent of this project did not include that end of the block. But over the past 5 months, I believe, Amplify came to the client and said that they're interested in a move. And so that lease would expire at the end of October next year, which is what's setting our schedule. And so the client has been, or the owner has been working with them to find another location. But yes, so the demolition of that building will come with the rest of the development for the dam and for all of the other processes that go along with that.
Okay. And then you said the idea is November-ish.
Yes.
Actually have like a groundbreaking for this. Okay.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, I will say the new renderings, in the addition to the drawings that we initially received, this looks much better. And it brings some excitement to what that block could look like. So thanks for, presenting some updated info.
Great to hear. Thank you.
This is Diane with the Hill CDC. Sabrina, I think we sent you an email this afternoon with the link to submit this proposal to the DRP. We would encourage you to do it as soon as possible so that we can get you on next year's schedule so that you can share this information with the broader community.
Certainly, yep. And I think just at the time when it was just focused on the emergency demo and then the demolition, that wasn't substantial enough for you guys' process. So now that we're further along with an actual development, we are more than happy to participate in the development review process.
And we are planning to submit to planning for a site plan review at the end of January for the development, not the permit. Permit's separate.
All right, if there are no additional questions or feedback, then that concludes the development activities meeting for 13/34, 13/36. And you guys can have a good evening and we'll transition into our special presentations